And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Lords of Creation is an older Martin Wallace game, one of the first games he came out with from Warfrog. I recently picked up a copy of the game. I played it several years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and I wasn't really fond of it back then. But I thought I'd give it a try. Maybe time would have made the game better. Well, before I tell you what my opinion of the game is, let's take a look at it. This Riskish type game. So here's the world at the beginning of the game. Players will actually take turns putting these different tiles on the different hexagons on the board. There's different kinds of tiles. Some tiles are not habitable by different people. That would include water, desert, and mountains. And then there's 4 types of terrain that is, and that would include the plains, the hills, the forests, and islands. So players will be taking these. The other 2 main features of the game are a deck of civilization cards and then your counters in your civilization. You have 3 different counters. Let's take a better look at these. You have, whoops, grabbed the wrong one. You have your barbarians, which are the only people you can attack with, but are worth fewer points at the end of the game. You have civilized people who won't attack, but they are worth more points at the end of the game. And then temples, which civilized people can build. Now, I'm really not sure. The civilization and the barbarian tokens are double-sided. The temples have a white side and the other, so they're pretty easy to find. But they are pretty flimsy tiles, and they're not so easy to tell the difference of at a glance. But it's not too big of a deal. Players are going to have a handful of 7 cards, and these cards are going to show the different types of terrain on the board. So a player will have 7 of these cards, and each turn a player will play these cards in front of them. And what a card will allow you to do is to place that many people in that type of terrain. So if I play this one, I can take 4 barbarians and place those barbarians in an island hex on the board. So I look at the board, here's an island hex, and I place barbarians there. Now, I can move people around on my turn, but you can only move them to the same type of terrain. So if I had put some barbarians here on the plains, I could move them here and then continue to move, but you always have to leave at least 1 person behind in a hex. Now, you can move civilization people, you can move barbarians, but barbarians cannot spend time with the civilians or civilized people, and civilized people cannot spend time with the barbarians. That would just not be healthy. Barbarians can attack. They can even attack a different type of terrain. When we attack, the attacker is going to roll 2 dice, and the defender will roll 1 die. Let's show that briefly. Let's say these are the dice rolled. The attacker rolls 2 dice. Depending on what kind of terrain he's attacking, he'll need a 6 if it's the same terrain, or a higher number if it's different terrain. So here the attacker would miss. The defender hits if his die is higher than both the attacker's dice. So the attacker has a pretty huge advantage here, but it is also possible to lose, for both sides to lose one. For example, here, let's say the attacker rolled a double 5, 10, which kills one of the opponents, but the defender rolled a 6, which is higher than both of the numbers that were rolled on the dice. So the attacker would also lose 1. After that, after you've done all your attacking and moving, and there's only so much you can do, I mean, it seems like you can do more, then you can, if you want, civilize 1 tile, turn everyone in that tile into civilized people, or if you have 2 civilized people in the same tile, you can get rid of one of them and make it a temple, which actually decreases the defense of that tile, but makes it worth more points at the end of the game. The game ends when the deck is gone, or when 2 people play the exact same card. And at that point, you get 1 point for every barbarian hex you have. You get 2 points for every civilized hex you have. And you get 3 points for every altar that you have. And that's basically it. It's a very, very simple game. Very unlike later Martin Wallace games. I still don't like this game. The components are really, really chintzy. But I can live with chintzy components. The idea of attacking and changing to civilized versus barbarians, it all sounds really good in theory. But in reality, it's kind of boring. There's only so much you can do in your turn. You move, attack. Attacking is a modified version of a risk attack, basically. I mean, it's different. And I'll give Martin Wallace credit for somehow managing in all of his games to come up with some new kind of attack style with 6-sided dice. The artwork isn't bad. I mean, and the theme is interesting. Oh, look at this Earth we're creating, and now I'm conquering it, and yada yada yada. It just doesn't have that oomph. People who want to play a game that has straight rules will be frustrated maybe by the randomness of the cards, even though there's a variant where you can reduce that. While other players can really just be frustrated because there's not a whole lot of in-your-face. Yes, you can attack other players, but it's not very satisfying because it all comes down to dot rolling, and you may lose an attack, and the initial map building is such an important part of the game. It's going to affect the rest of the game, and yet you really don't know how to do it. I don't know. I wish I could like this game more, but it just comes across as a simplistic Risk-type game that I think I would actually prefer playing Risk over this one, just because at least in Risk you feel like you're controlling massive armies. Here you feel like you're running with a few guys around the board trying to capture a few areas to get points at the end, and there's really no global feel to the game.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.